Welcome to Moments with MamasteFit. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about your postpartum period, when you can expect it to come back, what are some factors that may influence when you will or will not get your period, and what to expect during that first time. So let's break it down in this episode. Welcome to Moments with MamasteFit. We're going to be talking all about postpartum periods. We're going to be sharing a lot about our own personal experience with our monthly bleed.
Postpartum. Not the first one.
Not the very first one. That one was traumatizing for me.
Gina,
we could
sure.
probably have a whole episode on how to celebrate your period as a 13-year-old girl.
Or 10.
If you missed this Wednesday's episode with registered dietitian Ryan, definitely listen to that. We're talking all about postpartum nutrition in that episode, which plays a huge factor in when your postpartum period may come back. And so if you want to dive deeper into that, definitely take a listen to this Wednesday's episode. But let's first start with, when can you expect your period to come back in the postpartum? When should you expect Aunt Flo or Aunt Flo? I don't know which.
Aunt Flo.
Aunt Flo. I guess it depends on how fancy you want to be. When can you expect her to pay a visit to you after you've had a baby?
It depends on if you're breastfeeding or not. So if you're not breastfeeding, most people will experience a postpartum period within 6 to 8 weeks. So it's almost like you finally stop bleeding from having a baby and then you have your menstrual cycle. So you get no break after having the baby if you're not breastfeeding. If you are breastfeeding, on average, it takes about 7 to 8 months for your period to return. But some people can get it earlier. Some people it takes longer so there is some individual variance.
What about when you wean? If let's say you wean like at 1 month postpartum, when can you expect your period to come back?
If you completely wean from nursing earlier than 6 months, it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks to resume back to your normal cycle. But it still could take some time for it to be regular. So you could have a period, but it might take a little bit for it to become that regular period that you normally have, unless you've never had a regular period, which could be a whole podcast episode by itself. With exclusively breastfeeding, the 7 to 8 months for your period to return on average, this is why the lactation amenorrhea method is recommended for less than 6 months. Because most people who are exclusively nursing their baby, they're not giving them any solids, they're still nursing them throughout the night, so they're no longer than 8 hours between feedings, and they don't have that period, can be an effective way to use for birth control because you're not ovulating if you're not having a period. And for most of us, that's not going to happen until about 7 to 8 months if we're exclusively nursing. So the lactation amenorrhea can be effective. But because of the variance, you might be that one person that ovulates.
It's not 100%.
Nothing is 100%. Nothing is 100% except abstinence.
So there are a lot of factors that can influence when your period is going to come back if you are breastfeeding. You may get it back really early within that first 6 months, or it may not be until you're 18 months postpartum. So there's a huge variance on when you can expect your cycle to come back. One of the first factors is going to be, what are your stress levels? How is your lifestyle? Are you chronically stressed? Are you super fatigued and waking up every 2 hours? Are you not eating very well? Those are all going to be factors that will probably delay your cycle a little bit more. And so for me personally, with my first, I was about 13 months when my period came back. And I was probably a little depleted that year. I was overworking myself a lot. I was doing a lot of solo parenting. I didn't have as much family support as I do now. And so that one took me the longest to get my cycle back. And my daughter was also I don't want to eat food. I would just like to drink milk. And I was nursing constantly, even when she was a year old. For my son, I got my period back at 5 months, which again is before the 6 month time frame. But I was at that time living with our parents because my husband was away for work for a year and we were just living at my mom's house. And she was cooking me 3 meals a day, very highly nutritious meals. I was eating constantly. She would come and grab my baby when he would wake up in the morning so I could sleep for another hour or two. So I was very well taken care of. My period came back at 5 months. My body was like, you have a lot of help. You can sustain another life. Let's go. With Sophie, I think it was around 8 or 9 months when I got my period back. Probably I was normalized at this point. My husband and I were located together again. I was feeding myself, but I still had a lot of support. And so that one I think came back at a more regular time. And this one I haven't gotten back yet. So we'll see. I feel like it's coming soon, but we'll see.
So both of my periods did not come back until about 15 months. And this one could just be my normal time since it was literally the same for both postpartums. But also, I think I just have a high stress life that it could have been delayed due to high stress. Where with my first, I had the prolapse diagnosis. So I had to mentally overcome as well as physically overcome my prolapse diagnosis. And when I finally felt a little bit more like myself, my period had returned. And then with Colin, I was super stressed, postpartum depression and anxiety for a year, and probably still longer than a year. But at 15 months, that's when his returned around that same time. But I had felt physically ready to have a baby, but like mentally, I needed more time. Some people, this could just be your normal. So you could have like optimal nourishment for your body and like you could be physically ready to carry another pregnancy, both physically and mentally ready to carry another pregnancy. Because we get these messages like, hey, I want to have a baby right now. Like I'm ready. I feel ready, but I don't have a period, which is like kind of important to have a baby.
Ovulating is
Like
important.
ovulation is important to creating a baby. And if you're not ovulating, then you can't have a baby. So there are other factors other than just stress, sleeping, eating that have a part on your postpartum period. And so some of the time our hormones have a play. So prolactin is the biggest hormone with breastfeeding. It is what helps create our milk. So prolactin, milk, lactin. But this also suppresses ovulation. Different things could play a part in your prolactin levels. So some of us, your baby might not be eating very much during the day, breastfeeding wise, but if your baby is nursing a lot at night, this is when we're going to be releasing the most prolactin, which is going to be suppressing ovulation. So if your baby is like, they eat all the food during the day, but they just want only the boob in the middle of the night, this is releasing a lot of prolactin and likely decreasing ovulation happening. So our hormones also play a part other than just like nutrient deficits. Like these things also, like if you're body and mentally, physically unable to carry a pregnancy, or else like you could mentally decline or physically decline, yes, very important. You're not going to be able to carry a baby. You're not going to ovulate. But also our hormones play a part in how soon our period returns. And my babies all eat only at nighttime. I don't sleep, which also plays a part, but like my babies would constantly nurse every 2 to 3 hours at night, which is why we bed shared because it was the only way I got any sleep, but like wouldn't eat as often during the day. But because the prolactin is mostly created at night, I was creating a lot more prolactin. I also overproduce milk personally. So like I have a lot of prolactin in my body producing this milk, too much milk sometimes. But if you are also susceptible to that, you might take longer to get your period because of that.
Another big factor that can influence when your cycle is going to come back, in addition to what your hormones levels are, is your nutritional status. Are you severely depleted in some ways? Are you eating
Most of
enough
us are.
food? When we're breastfeeding, we have to eat at least 300 to 500 more calories per day to sustain ourselves. And so if you are in a severe caloric deficit, you're like losing a lot of weight, you're not eating enough food, your body is probably going to be like, we don't need another baby. We are barely sustaining ourselves right now. And so if we're not eating enough food, this could impact when your cycle is going to come back. If you have really low body fat, sometimes that can impact when your period is going to come back. If we are in a nutrient deficit, this can also impact it as well. And so when folks ask us, what can I do to help my cycle come back? I'm 9 months postpartum. My first thing is eat more food. Eat more nutritionally dense food. Like increase your caloric intake, but increase it with foods that are nutritionally dense. So like don't eat like a whole extra bag of Doritos. Maybe
Even though they're really good.
They are delicious. They're good for your soul. But we need food that is high in calories, but also high in nutrients as well. So we're looking for stuff that's going to really help support hormone health because, again, hormones play a huge factor in our reproductive health, which includes ovulating, which is what helps us get pregnant. And we're looking for omega-3s, so like fatty acids, think like fish, like tuna is a really great option, salmon. You could also do like walnuts as well. We're looking for iodine and selenium. Those are like super helpful. They're included in our prenatal vitamin that we take. And then we're looking for vitamin B. like B vitamins. I get like a monthly B vitamin shot, like injection in my arm from my provider because I'm very low on B12.
Many of us are
He's
low
like,
on
how
B
are you
vitamin.
awake right now? your B levels are really low. So that's something that I do with my provider to help to support like my hormone health and my nutrient levels. But we want to start thinking about, can I eat more food? Am I skipping breakfast every day? Did I skip breakfast today? Probably. Am I eating like an actual meal?
Is not
Like,
breakfast.
so we want to think about, can we increase the amount of food that we're eating, but make it nutriently dense? So really helpful ways that I have found to help me eat more food that's not just like snacking on junk is eating a high in protein breakfast. Like that is like hands down like the easiest way for me to start my day. And this is like eating oatmeal where I'm putting like peanut butter, bananas, and some collagen in it. I really like Needed's collagen personally. I also put collagen in my coffee, which is not a meal. That does not count.
You have to eat it in addition.
You have to eat it in addition to some food.
Or drink
Sometimes
it in
I'll
addition
do
to
like
food.
leftovers from dinner is another really great option. Or I'll just have like a pack of tuna or like a tuna sandwich because that's
I do
also
love a good tuna
or
sandwich with
I've been
hard-boiled
doing
egg.
oh yeah, I've been doing bagels with cream cheese and smoked salmon.
Okay, so I don't have time to do all of that.
That's really easy.
For
It's
high
really quick.
protein things. I know Gina doesn't prefer them, but I've been really liking the like overnight oats personally because it's something that I can prepare the night before and then just grab on my way to work. I literally just grab it from the fridge and bring it with me where
There's
I
a lot
go.
of really cool recipes out there. What I have found to be really helpful with I need meal ideas is ChatGPT. Use AI and be like, hey, I need 10 ideas for quick on-the-go breakfasts that are high in protein. And ChatGPT will give you a bunch of options. You can even be like, also add in an option for my kids.
Oh yeah.
So like meal planning is can be really helpful to use AI for. I found to be super
I should
helpful for me.
probably use that for make me a meal plan for your child who only eats mac and cheese.
And it'll be like, add broccoli. Anyways.
I mean, I do
so
add broccoli.
We want to increase our caloric intake, and a really great option to do that is by eating breakfast. And again, we have an entire episode that just came out this past Wednesday, so like 2 days ago, with a registered dietitian all about postpartum nutrition. So what food should we be eating in the postpartum to help support us healing? And we break down even more what you can do to help return your period as well. So now let's talk about the return of the first period, because I have heard a lot of horror stories. Like it's a shark attack. It's the most painful thing ever. But I actually found them to be significantly less painful than pre-kids. And I think it's because of the difference between being on hormonal birth control versus not being on any sort of birth control.
I also think it's just we're older, so our period is controlled by the HPO axis. It's just the like hypothalamus pituitary. I forget what the O stands for. I think ovarian axis, whatever. This axis that tells our brain when to create certain hormones to release an egg. And when we're teenagers, it's very immature. So this is a very common time that people have irregular, more painful, or heavier bleeding when this axis is regulating. But for many people, especially more so nowadays, a lot of people are starting birth control earlier. So their HPO axis before they have like a normal cycle or a regulated cycle is the like that beginning irregular portion that it's more painful, heavier bleeding, uncomfortable is kind of abruptly stopped because people start birth control. For us, I did have a regular cycle. I never cramped with my periods. They were like, 4 to 5 days before kids. But again, like, I don't remember it also because it was like I was like 16, like I'm 35. That was like 20 years ago. I don't fully remember what it was like before. But I went on birth control at 18. And I think it was around the same time. Like 18 until I started trying to have a baby in whatever year that was, 2019, 2018. It's a really long time to be on birth control. So I forgot what my period was like. But when I was on birth control, I had no pain. My periods were super short, like 2 to 4 days, if that. Super light bleeding. Like I had to wear maybe a pad that would change every once in a while. I was like, it's easy. So easy. But I was terrified because same, everyone was like, that first period is like a massacre. But it's because birth control makes your periods lighter. Estrogen and progesterone, my preceptor always talks about them. Estrogen is the fertilizer for your uterine lining. It is the fertilizer for your grass, if you think about it. It makes it luscious and green and beautiful and full. It's making your uterine lining bigger. Progesterone is like the lawnmower for it. It keeps it smooth but like at a consistent level. So the estrogen builds it up and the progesterone just keeps it luscious for a baby. But when you're on hormone and birth control, it's a regulated amount. So the estrogen is not going to build up as much. So it's not going to be as big of a uterine lining. And then the progesterone is like keeping it small. So you're not going to have as big of a uterine lining, especially if you're using a progesterone only birth control, which is what I switched to halfway through my like birth control time frame where there was no estrogen. So I had no uterine lining. And so I just didn't bleed for a while. So I also forgot how long bleeding happened because I also didn't bleed for like forever. Because I didn't have the estrogen to create that uterine lining. So I was terrified for that first one because, again, everyone was like, it was like a murder scene in there. And I thought I was dying, like I was in labor again. It wasn't that bad, guys. We should all calm down.
I mean, for us personally, it wasn't that bad. For me, it was the same. I was also very anxious about my period returning because I had heard that it was like the worst ever. It was horrible. And same as you, I was on hormonal birth control for like 10 years. My periods were like, okay. Like they were, I didn't write home about them. I don't really remember them.
We also didn't ovulate.
But pre-birth control, like as a teenager, I do remember them being like cramping was really, really bad. It was just like not a good time. But again, that was like 20 years ago. I don't really remember that much. But what I have found to be helpful for me in the postpartum now that I have essentially like a normal menstrual cycle. I mean, right now I don't, but like
I do remember yours were irregular even before you went on birth control. They were
irregular and they were very long cycles. And so after I gave birth to my first, my cycles were like perfect.
Yeah.
Like 28 days, ovulated on day 14, like textbook perfect, like since my first. And so it was almost like they reset everything, or I was just like not on hormonal birth control for a year. I'm not anti-birth control by any means, and I don't want anyone listening.
It is a great
I don't want
option.
anyone listening to think that we're anti, but
it's just different.
It was just different not being on any sort of hormonal birth control. And so for me, my first postpartum period, I think it just kind of like snuck up on me and I was like, I feel more crampy. Oh, I'm kind of bleeding. Okay, cool. What do I do? And so a product that I have found to be like really helpful for me postpartum, and it was a new thing that I started using since kids, was the Pixie Cup. And so it's like a menstrual cup that you insert, and there is a little bit of like a learning curve the first time you use it.
Yeah, you get a leak a couple times.
You insert it, you sterilize it. They have a little sterilizer, which is really nice. And then you insert it, and it just collects all the blood. And you don't have to wear tampons. You don't have to wear pads. And then when you just use the restroom, you just pop it out and like empty it, rinse it out, and then insert it again for your entire period. And so I don't have to spend money on disposable menstrual products. I don't have a tampon that was not tested on menstrual blood, like inserted inside me that is expanding in a weird way, potentially causing more irritation, more cramping. I have this silicone cup that is just collecting all my blood. And it's really nice. I've been a really big fan of it. I will say that I prefer the cup over the disc, I think just based on my own personal anatomy. But it's been a product that I've been utilizing all of my postpartums since I got my periods back. And I highly recommend, and I try to get all my friends on it. Like I try to convert everybody to the Pixie Cup. But yeah,
I've personally not used a cup because I tried tampons when I first was postpartum, but my prolapse was just like, tampons felt weird in my body, and like not that they were like falling out, but it's just like I noticed them a lot more easily, and they just didn't go in as easily like they once did. So when Gina was like, use a cup, I was like, absolutely not. The suction in my cervix does not sound like something I want. And this is a common concern for people who have prolapse, is that like the suction of the cup, like you do have to like break the suction in order to pull it out. And then they're like, well, what if I apply too much suction on my cervix? Like there's nothing that shows that it'll increase prolapse, but it was just a concern of mine. So the disc has no suction. It's just a disc that like sits in front of your cervix and collects the blood. And even sometimes some discs, if you pee, it can like contract your pelvic floor just enough that it'll empty it without you having to do anything. It has to have like sat there just perfectly for me to get that. Most of the time I just pull it out. Some discs that I've tried, it's just the disc, like it's similar to the NuvaRing where it just sits right in front of the cervix. and you just have to dig in and pull it out. But Pixie Cups disc's really nice because it has a little like silicone tail that you can use similar to a tampon, where you can pull the tail to pull it out easier. But again, there's no suction. It's just kind of passively collecting the blood. So it does make a little bit of a mess until you kind of figure it out. But it's been really nice to, again, because tampons didn't feel right. I hate wearing pads. But like if I want to go running or I want to go swimming, I can still do that with the disc. Again, still learning curve, just like with the cup. But I like that it didn't have suction.
So with the cup, just as like a quick educational segment on how to remove it with the suction, is you want to inhale and kind of push down as you inhale. So we're kind of using our breath to push the pelvic floor down, and then you can grab and pinch it, and that releases the suction and then pull it out. Just as a side note for anybody that's interested in trying a menstrual cup or disc, Pixie Cup is one of our favorite companies that I would highly recommend. They've donated like over 300,000 Pixie Cups to like girls in need, which I think is really amazing. So not only are they an amazing company, they have this really great background where they're helping to support the world with this. So you can check them out at pixiecup.shop and use our code MamasteFit to get 15% off plus free shipping. They've got a lot of really awesome products where they have a to-go container that you can put water in and then shake it when you're in like a public bathroom.
They have starter kits that come with everything that you need.
They have a sterilizer. They also have like a vulva balm now, which I'm really excited about
They have
using.
like a first period kit that you can get for your daughters for their first period to like commemorate this amazing occasion. Because even though it's a first period for you postpartum, eventually if you have a daughter, they will get one too.
So definitely check them out at pixiecup.shop and use our code MamasteFit to get 15% off.
One thing that I did notice after having kids with my periods is that when I ovulated, I feel pain. I feel the cramping and this like pressure when I ovulate. And it's called, I love the name. It's like Mittelschmerz. It's German. So if someone who actually speaks German, if I'm saying this terribly wrong, let me know. But when your like egg is released from your ovary and it'll like alternate sides or like whichever ovary is the one releasing
I've noticed
the egg,
that too.
I feel that pain. And the first time I had it, it was like my first period when my prolapse. I also had increased prolapse symptoms at the same time that I was ovulating. And I was like, well, this is it. There goes my uterus is falling out. And then I had my first period 2 weeks later. I was like, well, I overreacted just a bit. It's not I had literally made an appointment and showed up because I forgot to cancel it. And I was like, I'm fine. I was just ovulating. But thank you for being available. And she's like, it's fine. Like, I'm glad that you're fine and not like prolapsing your uterus like you were freaking out about.
I also found that postpartum with those periods, I felt like because I was not on birth control anymore, I was experiencing my hormones in their fullest. And so I was not aware that I PMS'd.
Oh, yeah. Also that. Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember this from before. This is new. I'm super angry at you for no reason.
Oh, yeah. And then next day, period.
And I'm like, oh, so that's what PMS was. Because I would hear about all these like terms with my menstrual cycle, like pre-kids. And I'm like, weirdos. And then here I am. Here I am in them in the full. They're very raw.
Yeah.
emotions.
Like, oh, I wasn't like, I'm not like a weak person. I was just like on my period. Yeah.
So with breastfeeding and getting your period back, because if you are still breastfeeding past your period, you may notice like a slight dip in supply when you are actually bleeding. There's nothing wrong with that. Like just nurse more. Like it potentially could happen. So just be aware of that. You might notice it more if you're like pumping and see that maybe there's like decreased output, or like maybe baby's trying to nurse a lot more because they're like, what the heck? Like, where's all my milk? So you may notice that if you are still breastfeeding when you get your period back, but it's not really anything to be super concerned about.
And this is just due to the hormone changes during your menstrual cycle. For that period portion, the hormones are different. That is affecting a decrease in milk supply. But it will return once it like kind of finishes the bleeding. But during your period, you might notice that it actually is a little bit more uncomfortable to nurse because your nipples are more sensitive during your period. If it's uncomfortable, you don't need to continue. But if it, just know that once your period is over, it will resolve itself.
And then just to end, a really quick note is sometimes we get folks that ask, when should I wean my baby? and you can wean whenever you want. So maybe you want to wean like after you get your period, maybe you want to wean at a year, or maybe you want to wean like when you're pregnant for the next one.
The World Health Organization does recommend breastfeeding is nutritionally beneficial for babies up to 2 years of life. There is no nutritional benefit shown after 2 years, but I'm sure there is emotional benefits and bonding benefits if you do go past the 2 years.
So just to wrap it up, when can you expect your postpartum period to return? It really varies depending on whether you're breastfeeding, whether you weaned your baby, and how frequent are you nursing. If you are formula feeding or you're no longer breastfeeding your baby, you can probably expect to see your period in like 4 to 8 weeks. If you are still breastfeeding, you can expect your period around 7 to 8 months postpartum, but this can really range. You can get it before this time frame, and it can also be well past this time frame as well. There's a number of factors that could influence when you may get your period back, such as lifestyle factors, such as are you really stressed out? How is your mental health? In addition to what is your nutritional status? Are you eating enough food to sustain both this baby that you're currently feeding in addition to a potential new life? Your body is really smart and might be like, no, thank you. We do not need anymore. We are tapped out on resources. So if you are wanting your period to come back sooner, think about how much food are eating. Can we increase our caloric intake and increase the nutriently dense foods that we are eating? Can you eat breakfast every day?
That would be just breakfast.
Just breakfast.
Baby steps.
That will just really set the tone for your day. Can we do things to help decrease our stress levels? Can we do things to help improve our mental health, like self-care, like whatever that looks like for you? For me, I've been coloring a lot. I've been influencing all my friends to do coloring with alcohol markers and puzzles. So is there something that you can do to help decrease your stress levels? And then when you do get your first period back, it might be scary, it might be different than it was pre-kids, but it really shouldn't be anything like too overwhelming. If you are noticing that there's like really intense bleeding with it, like you're passing like clots, I would definitely see your provider for that.
A product that both Gina and I have utilized during our postpartum with our first postpartum periods and beyond is the Pixie Cup and Disc. We really like a lot of their products, from their sterilizer to their wipes to their like little travel cups, so that if I'm out and about, I can still wash my disc and not have to like stand at the sink with my bloody disc to wash it off in the middle of a public bathroom. So we really like a lot of their products because it was really mindful for what women actually need during their menstrual cycle. And so for every disc and cup that's purchased from Pixie Cup, they also donate to somebody in need. So they've donated over 300,000 cups or discs to women in need. So they also give back to the community that they're supporting. So if you want to check out Pixie Cup, you can go to pixiecup.shop and use code MamasteFit for 15% off and free shipping.
And if you want more support in the postpartum, head to mamastefit.com and check out our postpartum fitness programs that we have designed to help to support you to recover from birth and from pregnancy so you can feel strong as you approach motherhood. And you can use code MOMENTS10 to get 10% off any of our online offerings, both for the postpartum and for pregnancy.